I'm Bethanjan and welcome back. We are going to be talking about, you guessed it, hands. How to draw them, how to not hide them, and how to finally just embrace hands as an artist, okay? Like, everybody's been through that phase, even I went through that phase, of where I started to draw people and hands were behind the back, hands were in pockets, and sometimes hands were just cut off eventually, and they were just nubs. I had no hands in my work until I was forced to learn how to draw hands, and hands can change literally everything about your art pieces, your character designs. Like, to add more emotion behind something, hands are important, even though they suck. So today, we're going to learn how to draw hands. So, first thing we are going to look at is that there are basically 4 different parts to your hands, okay? In general, you have your palm, okay? You have your palm area, you have your wrist, you have your fingers, and then you have your thumb. 4 different parts, okay? And just to start off, we are just going to talk about everything in boxes. I'm sure you've seen this before. If you've looked up how to draw hands, you start off with just the palm area of what you're looking at, and then you go into drawing some more detailed things. This is just an example of how I approach hands, because I wanted to really just show how I warm up in a sense when I know I'm going to be drawing a hand or two, you know, because they're so complex sometimes. I will start off with obviously the palm, and then I will add the thumb on to the palm. Now, some people I know they like to draw the entire shape of the palm, including like the thumb area, but I like to add the thumb area separately just because it makes more sense in my brain. Then I will go into drawing out the fingers. And when I can see like the fingertips, I will add like a little circles so then I know what general directions they're going in. And yeah, as you can see, my fingers, I like to keep them separate with 3 different like little sections, because your fingers are made up 3 different sections and your thumb is made up of 2. So that's what I end up going with. And here you can see from the second sketch I did on the side, you can even simplify it more down to just the shape and general motion of where the fingers are heading. I used to do that a lot. And then here's just some examples of how I look at the fingers as well as for the thumb. Now, there are, of course, a couple of ways you can go about when drawing your fingers or just wanting to get the shape down. I tend to lean towards thinking of it in a cylindrical shape. I know some people like to draw out the boxes. I occasionally tried that, but for me, I just really like drawing out it in a cylindrical way when thinking about fingers. There's also another way you can think about it is the knuckles and bones. You can think of those as like pinpoints and drawing out it that way into like these lines. But that's just generally, I don't like to go that route because it makes it more confusing for me. But whatever works for you, honestly. So, before I get into the main sketch here, I like to go into a few like executive drawings just to warm me up. Obviously, don't expect it to be perfect. When you're just, sketching out things like this and trying to get better at different things such as hands because they're so complex, do not get too detailed. Like, just start off with some random hand gestures instead of it being so neat and tidy. Just, again, draw things out really loose. Draw into simple shapes like we've always talked about in some of the other videos. Like, it's not going to be that complicated as long as you look at things in a more simple way. Don't try and overthink everything. Like, you can even tell on the second and third drawing that I did, like, those are not perfect in my eyes, but as long as you are a little bit warmed up for the main like hand drawing that you're doing, you're gonna be fine. Alrighty, so we are warmed up and now finally getting into the main hand drawing here. And when you are going to choose your specific reference photo, make sure it has good lighting. At least for me, I think it's a lot easier when you're able to have really strong lighting on hands when you're wanting to practice. You can see the different value ranges, the curves that are going on, but make sure you have a good reference photo to go off of before going into your drawing. Now, the one I chose is pretty daring, pretty, you could say difficult, you could say. And the reason why I really like to challenge myself is that I can think of how I can draw my hands differently going forward. I used to be very, straightforward with my hands when I would draw them. It would just be like palm facing forward or the back facing towards me. And if you don't have any range or emotion showing with your hands, your characters, I hope that they're not just like doing this. That's boring. Like, add some drama to it, you're gonna have different emotions with different art pieces. You want some variety with your hands, okay? Even when I'm like talking here, I'm not just going like this the whole time. I'm moving my hands in different ways. Like when I'm talking, I'm a hand person when I talk. It helps me explain better. I don't know why, but it does. But going into it, look at your negative shapes that are going on. That really is helpful going forward. And when you're just starting out with your first sketch through, obviously I will go through and erase the first sketch after going over it once. And then go into those final lines where I want everything at properly. I think another really important tip when drawing hands, when paying attention to the fingers of everything, is that your fingers are not usually straight. Like I was saying earlier, you want some variety with your hands and different arrangements of everything. So when you're thinking about your fingers, nothing is going to be straight. You have blood going through your hands and your skin. Even if you look at your hand, the skin, it's not straight. Your fingers are not straight. Like, even if you move it the slightest, like your finger the slightest, it's gonna be at a curve. So pay attention to those slight curves. And it's kind of like, the best explanation I can think of is like, each section of like your finger, how I was talking about how your fingers are divided up into 3, or your thumb is divided up into 2. Your skin, even if you have like your finger pointing straight up on the side, you can see how everything has like a curve to it, like a little bump, like a little grapes, okay? Like grapes are not straight, they have a little bit of a curve to it. That's kind of how your fingers are, if that makes any sense. I don't know why I used a grape as an example, but it made sense in the moment, okay? Got little grape fingers. Another really... Oh my goodness. Can you stop, Donner? Anyways, as I was saying earlier, as my... as my dog rudely interrupted me. When paying attention to your fingers and the ends of your fingers, even if you look at them now, everybody's fingers are not perfectly curved. You're gonna have a little bit of angles to your fingers. So even in the image, you can tell that where the fingernail and the finger, like the end of it, meets itself, it's not perfectly curved. You're gonna have some angles to it where you have like, some of this and then this. You can tell like on the pinky area where that happens kind of. But pay attention to those slight variations in the ends of your fingers, because that is very, very important. It's not a perfect curve. Of course, everybody's hands are different. You're not always going to be having perfect model hands for everything. The final tip that I can really think of when it comes to drawing hands is paying attention to the like little landmarks of your fingers and your palms. Usually, you know, you'll have like 2 lines that go across your palm, and then some people will have like this 7 mark. As you can, I can't like show you, but look for those little landmarks, or in like the inside of your hand for your fingers, you have the lines for the creases on your fingers, or on the tops you have creases from your knuckles. Like, look for those landmarks because those will help you extremely when drawing the hand. And then again, obviously I'm not using any color for the skin or anything, so just keep it simple. Think of your line weight going into it. I just prefer using a mechanical pencil because I can get, you know, some of the thicker lines and some thinner lines when indicating different things. It just works out better for me. But yeah, that is really how I draw hands. I can't talk much about the anatomy side of things because it's just very straightforward. You have 5 bones in your palm, and then your wrist has like a chunk of bones, like a clump, a chunk, a clump, chunk. There's a chunk there, okay? And then, of course, like we talked earlier, you have 3 bones in your fingers, and then you have 2 for your thumb, which is why we want to keep those separate because they are different from each other. Where the bones meet, you have like your knuckles, and the knuckles in your fingers, you have like tinier knuckles. I don't know if they're specifically called that, but like that's what I think of. You have your main knuckles of your hand, and then your fingers have the like tinier knuckles in them so that you can, you know, grasp different things and all that jazz. But anyways, that is how I draw hands. I hope this was helpful in any way, shape, or form, because drawing hands, let's be honest, it can be really challenging if you overthink it, but if you break it down into some really basic steps, I'm sure you can get the hang of drawing hands. Anyways, I hope everything is going well on your end. Subscribe, leave a comment if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!